All right, so get this. Today's deep dive is going to be a wild ride. We're digging into Nick Rekieta, the lawyer turned internet guy.
Yeah, and it's wild how his story goes from like legal deep dives to, well,
Yeah.
we'll get into it. All I can say is these forum posts, they hold nothing back.
No kidding. So we got to remember everything we're looking at, it's filtered through their brand of humor, that specific lens.
Absolutely. Think of it like we're not just getting the news, we're getting their hot take on the news, which adds another layer to everything, right?
For sure. So rewind back to the early days of Rekieta online. He kind of first appears during the whole LOL suit thing, that legal battle between Maddox and Dick Masterson.
Ah, the LOL suit. The case that practically invented internet drama, or at least, that kind of internet drama. What's interesting is how Rekieta saw an opportunity there.
Yeah.
Because legal documents, they could be dense.
Totally.
Right, and he was able to break them down in a way that was actually entertaining, which was pretty new at the time.
He was like the internet's first Lawsplainer, right?
Exactly. He explained all the legal jargon and intricacies of the case in a way that was easy to understand and, dare I say, fun. But here's the thing. He also understood how to really connect with an audience online. Remember Super Chats?
Oh, yeah, those were brand new back then.
Exactly. Rekieta was one of the first to really utilize that feature, reading them out loud and responding to viewers like in real time. He tapped into that parasocial thing, which is huge now, but he was way ahead of the curve.
It's true. He was building a community from the get-go, but things really blew up for him during the Weeb Wars. Anyone scratching their heads, this was a huge controversy in the anime voice acting community.
Right, and it gets pretty intense. There were all these accusations of sexual misconduct against voice actor Vic Mignogna, and Rekieta, well, he jumps right into the middle of it, even raised a significant amount of money to support Mignogna.
So he goes from explaining this lawsuit to basically becoming a figurehead in this whole other controversy.
Yeah, in a way, you could say that.
Yeah.
It was around then that people start calling him the Pope of Law Tube.
Mhm.
His audience just exploded, and he became the guy for legal analysis, not just for online stuff, but high-profile trials, too, like the Kyle Rittenhouse case. He was everywhere.
And you gotta admit, he had a way of making law, which can be super dry, weirdly compelling. Like, he was pulling in way more viewers than the actual court channels, for sure.
It's crazy how he's able to do that, though, right? Because law, especially, like, court proceedings, they're dry, man. Super dry. He, like, injected something in there, personality,
Wow.
humor. Maybe that's the secret sauce.
Yeah, it's definitely part of it. But, success online, it's fickle. As Rekieta got bigger, so did the scrutiny. And that's where I think things start to, get a little complicated. You start to see this shift in his online persona. The alcohol becomes a more regular fixture in his streams.
Right, right. Like this whole other side of him starts to come out. And the forum posts, they definitely pick up on that. There's this one incident, I think it was copyright strike on one of his videos, and his reaction was, well, let's just say it was pretty explosive. Yeah, it really was. And it wasn't a one-time thing either. He got hit with multiple YouTube bans. Remember that whole Keffals kerfuffle?
Yeah.
That one really blew up. Keffals is a transgender activist, and, well, she and Rekieta, they had some very public clashes.
I gotta admit, I'm not as familiar with that whole saga. I guess that's where, like, the context of these forum posts is really important, right?
Exactly. This specific community online, they were super invested in that whole situation, and their commentary on it, well, it's a mix of dark humor, social commentary, and some pretty brutal analysis of how Rekieta was acting. Remember, they don't pull any punches.
Gotcha. So it's not just about, like, the events themselves. It's how this specific group online is, like, interpreting and reacting to them. It's like they have their own, like, inside language. Like, what even is a lol cow?
Good point. That's a term they use a lot to describe someone who's become, like, an object of ridicule or amusement online, often because of their own, self-inflicted stuff. And they definitely saw Rekieta as, like, the poster child for that.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like their own way of making sense of this whole, train wreck.
Exactly. And speaking of train wrecks, this is where Rekieta's wife, Kayla, enters the picture. Or, as the forum posters like to call her, Lady Rackets.
Oh, boy. Yeah, the forum posts, they did not hold back when it came to their relationship. There was a lot of speculation, rumors, about open relationships and trips to certain resorts.
Right. The speculation was everywhere. And Rekieta, being Rekieta, he reacted very defensively, like you'd expect, saw it as this invasion of privacy, an attack on his family.
Which is understandable, but at the same time, he's putting a lot of his life online, you know? It's that blurry line between your public persona and your private life, right?
Exactly. And this is where the whole parasocial relationship thing comes in. Rekieta had built this super dedicated fan base who felt like they knew him, like they were part of his life. So when his behavior started to change, when these more personal details came out, it created this, like, dissonance.
Yeah, like, hold on, this isn't the Rekieta I thought I knew.
Exactly. And it caused a real rift. Some people were like, okay, this is who he is now, and even embraced it. But others, they felt betrayed, like the image they had of him was shattered.
And it's wild how, like, the audience almost feels like they own a piece of you, you know? Like,
Right.
they get to decide who you are as a public figure.
It's the double-edged sword of internet fame, right? You build this connection, this like intimacy, but it comes with expectations. And when those expectations aren't met, well, the backlash can get pretty intense.
And for Rekieta, that backlash, it had real consequences. His YouTube channel, it took a nosedive, lost subscribers, his super chats dried up. He tried to switch over to Rumble, even got himself a pretty sweet deal, but I don't know, it just wasn't the same.
Yeah, the damage was done. At least like within certain corners of the internet, his reputation was pretty much gone. And the forum posters, they were there for all of it. Every misstep, every meltdown. It was this weird mix of, I don't know, morbid fascination and straight up schadenfreude.
It's like they were watching a car crash in slow motion. Couldn't look away.
Yeah, kind of. And then, like, just when you thought things couldn't get any worse, we get to the event that really solidified his lolcow status, as the forum users would say, his arrest.
May 2024. That's when it stopped being like an online thing and became a real-life tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, the arrest itself was a bombshell, right? Drug charges, child neglect. It wasn't just, being messy online anymore. Now it was serious stuff, potentially hurting himself and others. And then the details that came out later, the documents about a child testing positive for cocaine, man, that really shook people up.
Yeah, even his diehard fans, the ones who stuck by him through everything else, that was tough to come back from.
It's like this dark reminder that behind the screen, behind the persona, right, there are real people with real lives and real consequences.
Totally. And it's not just Rekieta who got caught in the undertow, right? There's Aaron Imholt, his co-host from the Steel Toe Morning Show. For a while there, those two were inseparable, streaming from hot tubs, egging each other on, and then boom, everything implodes.
Yeah, their relationship was already on shaky ground, you could tell. But the arrest seemed to be the final straw. Aaron and his wife split up, and then he starts spilling the tea, confirming all the rumors, the swinging, the drugs. He paints this picture of Rekieta as like a toxic influence, almost like a cult leader. It's kind of wild.
It's almost impossible to separate fact from fiction at that point, but one thing's for sure, everything Rekieta built, it all came crashing down. And those forum posts, man, they captured every single messy detail of it all.
It did. And I think that's why this whole deep dive is so fascinating, We're not just looking at one guy's rise and fall. We're seeing it through the lens of this very specific corner of the internet with their own biases, their own language, their own brand of dark humor. It's a deep dive into internet culture and how fame works online and into that very human need to build people up just to tear them down.
Makes you think twice about hitting that follow button, huh? It's like a reminder that the internet, it's a hall of mirrors. And sometimes the reflections we see, good or bad, they say more about us than the people we choose to follow. So what's the takeaway? What can we learn from the cautionary tale of Nick Rekieta? Maybe it's just this. Behind every carefully crafted online persona, there's a real person, flaws and all. And sometimes the most important deep dive we can do is into our own online habits, our own motivations, what we consume, who we give our attention to, and how we navigate the sometimes treacherous waters of online fame and fandom. That's our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining.